On August 10, 2026, the ground opened underneath Western Colombia. A 7.4 magnitude earthquake tore through the coffee-growing heartland of the country in under a minute. Towns most people outside Colombia had never heard of, set in the same green, terraced hillsides UNESCO once recognized for their beauty, were flattened before anyone had time to run. The death toll passed 200 within 2 days and kept climbing. Rescue crews still can't reach the epicenter. Entire families are still unaccounted for. And the people digging through what's left of their homes aren't doing it for a headline. They're doing it because someone they love is still under there. And if you've been paying attention this year, Colombia isn't standing alone. It's one entry in a pattern that's hard to explain away. 2026 has already brought major, deadly earthquakes to Gilgit-Baltistan in Pakistan, to Guerrero, Mexico, off the coast of North Maluku, Indonesia, near Sanriku, Japan, in Jorm, Afghanistan. 5 continents, different fault lines with no connection to each other geologically. The same 12 months. I'm not going to tell you that every earthquake is a sign, or that the science is somehow wrong. Earthquakes have always happened, long before this year and long before any of us. But I want you to sit, for just a second, with the feeling you might have had scrolling past one of those headlines this week. Not panic, something quieter than that. A small unease. Like the ground itself has gotten less trustworthy lately. Like something underneath everything is shifting, and nobody can quite say why. That feeling is older than you think, almost 2,000 years older. On a prison island in the Aegean Sea, an old man named John was once shown exactly how this world ends. Not in a dream he half remembered the next morning. He was pulled, fully conscious, into the throne room of heaven itself, and shown, piece by piece, how history closes its final chapter. And buried inside that vision, in a sequence of 7, is an earthquake that sounds unsettlingly close to the one you just watched on the news. Here's how the whole sequence opens. Heaven is looking for someone worthy enough to open a scroll. A scroll that, once opened, cannot be closed again. And when no one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth turns out to be qualified, John does something you and I would probably do too, standing in that room. He breaks down and weeps, not out of fear, out of grief. Because if no one can open it, no one can finish what needs to be finished. No one can bring justice to the people crushed under it. No one can end it. Stay with me, because what happens next is the hinge the entire book of Revelation turns on. Tonight, I want to walk you through the full sequence, in order, from the beginning. Because once you see exactly where that earthquake sits inside it, the quiet unease you felt this week is going to make a lot more sense. Picture the room John is standing in. A throne surrounded by 4 living creatures and 24 elders, and in the right hand of the one seated there, a scroll sealed 7 times over. That scroll is what all of this, the earthquake included, comes out of, while John is still weeping over the fact that no one was found worthy to open it. One of the elders leans toward him and says the words that change everything. Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. John turns, expecting a lion. What he sees instead is a lamb, standing as if it had been slain, bearing the marks of a violent death, and yet alive. And this lamb walks forward and takes the scroll directly from the hand of the one seated on the throne. The moment he takes it, everyone in that room, every creature, every elder falls down. And a new song begins, one that says he is worthy because he was slain. And by his blood, he purchased people for God from every tribe and tongue and nation. That's the setup. A lamb who conquered by dying takes control of the document that will unfold the end of human history. Everything after this is him opening it, seal by seal, in front of John's eyes. The first 4 seals release 4 riders. You already know their nickname, even if you've never opened a Bible in your life. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The Lamb breaks the first seal. One of the 4 living creatures calls out with a voice like thunder, "Come!" And John looks up to see a white horse. Its rider is holding a bow. He's given a crown, and he rides out as a conqueror, bent on conquest. Here's what almost every casual reading gets wrong about this one. White and a crown sound like Christ himself, triumphant, glorious. That's the trap. Look closer. He's not carrying a sword. He's carrying a bow, a weapon of distance, of deception, of a shot fired before you even see it coming. He doesn't earn his crown. It's given to him. This is a counterfeit. A man who arrives looking like the answer to everyone's exhaustion, offering the thing the whole world is starving for. Peace, stability, an end to chaos. And this is where it stops being ancient history and starts being current events. Because scripture elsewhere describes this same figure making a covenant, a peace agreement, with many nations for a period of 7 years. A man who solves what nobody else could solve, who gets applauded onto the world stage precisely because he brings relief. That's the trap of the first seal. It isn't war, it's the opposite. A calm nobody questions, arriving right when the world is most desperate for it, sold by someone who has already picked up his bow. The Lamb breaks the second seal, and this time the horse that comes out is red. Its rider is given power to take peace from the earth, so that people will kill one another. And he's handed a great sword. Whatever fragile calm the first rider bought, the second one burns it down. This is the point where the treaty cracks, where the peace turns out to have been a pressure valve, not a solution. And once it's released, the violence that follows is worse than anything that came before it, because it comes from people who believed they were finally safe. Then the third seal breaks, and a black horse appears. Its rider is holding a pair of scales, and a voice from among the 4 living creatures says something oddly specific. 1 quart of wheat for a day's wages, 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages. And then a warning. Don't touch the oil and the wine. A scale measures exactly what something costs. And what this seal describes, in language a first-century audience understood instantly, is a full day of labor, buying barely enough food to survive the day. Total economic collapse for ordinary people, while luxury goods, the oil, the wine, the things the wealthy depend on, stay untouched. Whatever war breaks out under the second seal, the third one shows you exactly who pays for it, not the people who started it. The fourth seal breaks, and this rider doesn't need an introduction. John writes his name plainly, Death, and Hades follows close behind him, riding on a pale, sickly-colored horse. Together, they're given authority over 1/4 of the earth, to kill by sword, by famine, by plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. 1/4. Stop on that number for a second. Not a battlefield somewhere far away. 1/4 of every person alive on this planet. Gone. In a single unfolding wave that started with a man carrying a bow and ends with famine, disease, and violence. feeding each other in a loop. Nobody can stop once it starts. And then something shifts. The fifth seal breaks, and instead of another rider, John sees something else entirely. Souls under the altar of people who were killed because of their testimony, because of what they refused to stop saying about God. And they're not silent. They're crying out, "How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true until you judge and avenge our blood?" That question, "How long?" is the most human line in the entire vision. It's grief demanding an answer, and each of them is given a white robe and told to wait a little longer until the full number of their fellow servants is complete. Sit with that for a second. Heaven's answer to how long isn't a date. It's not yet, there's more to come. That's not comfort in the way we usually want comfort, but it is honest. And it tells you something the rest of this video is going to keep circling back to. This isn't random suffering. It's accounted for. Every name is known. Remember what I opened with tonight. Colombia, Gilgit-Baltistan, Guerrero, North Maluku, Sanriku, Yorm. 5 continents, 1 calendar year. No geological connection between any of them, except the year on the calendar. Now listen to the 6th seal and see if it sounds familiar. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to earth, as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. I want to be careful here, because this matters. I'm not telling you the earthquake in Colombia this month is the 6th seal. It isn't. What John describes is bigger than any single event. Sun, moon, and sky all at once. The whole planet. Not one region. But I am telling you this. The pattern underneath this seal, the ground itself becoming something you can no longer trust, one tremor building on the last, is not something you have to picture in your imagination anymore. You watched an early version of it on the news this week. And then the reaction, once the full weight of the 6th seal lands. Kings, generals, the rich, the powerful, the ordinary. All of them run and hide in caves and among the rocks of the mountains. And they say to the mountains and rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can withstand it?" Notice what breaks these people isn't the earthquake alone. It's the realization of who is behind it. For the first time in this whole sequence, they understand they aren't dealing with chaos. They're dealing with a judge. And there is nowhere left to run from that. Right before the 7th seal, though, there's a pause, a moment where an angel marks 144,000 people, sealed, protected, set apart in the middle of everything collapsing around them. Even here, in the worst of it, some are being kept, not removed from the storm, kept through it. And then the Lamb breaks the 7th seal, and nothing happens. John writes 4 words that carry more weight than anything else in the entire vision. There was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Think about everything that is just torn through this vision. A false peace, war, famine, death claiming a quarter of the earth, martyrs crying out for justice, mountains disappearing, and kings hiding in caves. And heaven's response, right at the threshold of what comes next, isn't another sound. It's silence. I think that half hour is God giving the world one more moment to catch its breath before what's coming next. The trumpets. Because even after everything the first 6 seals have shown, The door hasn't fully closed yet. There's still a pause. Still a moment where turning around means something. But the silence ends. 7 angels step forward, and they're handed 7 trumpets. And once the first one sounds, everything moves into a different gear entirely. One I'm not going to open tonight, because it deserves its own hour, not the last few minutes of this one. Here's what I keep coming back to, out of everything John wrote down on that island. It didn't start with fire falling from the sky. It started with relief. With a rider nobody was afraid of, because he looked like the answer. That's worth sitting with longer than the disasters are, because the terrifying part was never really the horsemen. It was how good the first one looked riding in. If this is the first video of mine you've watched, there are 2 more waiting. The trumpets, and after that, the bowls. Because the scroll the Lamb took from that throne has more in it than 7 seals. If you want to walk through the rest of it with me, subscribe. And if this one made you think, don't keep that to yourself. Send it to 5 people who need to see it before they see the next headline. Tell me in the comments honestly, which seal unsettled you the most? And tell me which one you want me to open next, the trumpets or the bowls. I'll see you in the next one.